Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of Nexus Station, watching the largest space battle in galactic history unfold around Earth. Thousands of ships moved through space like deadly dancers, their weapons lighting up the darkness. But this was not just a battle between fleets. It was a battle for the soul of the galaxy. Admiral Sam Carter's tactical genius was turning the tide. His converted cargo ships moved like predators, striking at the Council fleet's weak points with precision that amazed even veteran commanders. Every move he made seemed perfect, as if he could see the future before it happened. "Jake, status." "Report," Elena said. "The Council fleet is breaking apart," Jake replied from his tactical station. "Half their ships have either been destroyed or switched sides. But Chancellor Mordun's command ship is still fighting." Elena could see the massive vessel on her display. It was 3 times larger than any other ship in the battle, bristling with weapons that could destroy entire cities. Mordun was making his final stand, and he was not going quietly. Captain Mike Johnson's voice came through the communication system. "Commander Rodriguez, we have the Chancellor's ship surrounded, requesting permission to finish him." Elena hesitated. It would be so easy to give the order. One word and the being who had oppressed humanity for centuries would be dead. The fleet commanders were waiting for her decision, ready to follow whatever order she gave, and that was exactly what Chancellor Mordun had warned her about. "Negative, Captain Johnson," Elena said. "Disable their weapons, but do not destroy the ship." "Ma'am, we are not conquerors, Captain. We are liberators." Instead of ordering the final attack, Elena opened a communication channel to the Chancellor's ship. "Mordun, this is Commander Rodriguez. Your fleet is defeated. Surrender now, and we can end this without more bloodshed." The reply came filled with hatred and fear. "You expect me to believe you will show mercy? You are the same species that once ruled through terror." "No," Elena said. "We are not. That is what you never understood." She activated the station's main communication array, broadcasting on all frequencies across the galaxy. Every ship in the battle could hear her. Every planet, every space station, every species. "People of the galaxy," Elena began. "I am Elena Rodriguez, and I speak for all of humanity. Today, we revealed the truth about our past. We were once your rulers, your conquerors, your masters. We controlled your loyalty through abilities you could not resist." She paused, feeling the weight of billions of listeners. "But we were also the species that chose to give up that power. 4,000 years ago, our ancestors saw what they were becoming and made the hardest choice in history. They chose to step down rather than become tyrants." On his flagship, Chancellor Mordun listened with growing confusion. This was not what conquerors said. This was not how empires were born. "Today we face that same choice," Elena continued. "We could use our abilities to rule you again. Many of you are already willing to follow us, to trust us, to give us your loyalty, but we will not take it." Dr. Lisa Thompson looked up from her station with surprise. "Elena, what are you doing?" "What our ancestors should have done," Elena replied. "Instead of hiding from our nature, we are going to embrace it responsibly." She returned to her broadcast. "We propose a new kind of government for the galaxy. Not rule by force, not rule by fear, but partnership. The new Galactic Alliance will be led by representatives from every species, with humans serving as mediators and protectors." Admiral Carter's voice came through on a private channel. "Commander, are you sure about this? We have won. We could take control of everything." "That is exactly why we should not," Elena replied. She continued her broadcast. "We will not govern you. We will not make your decisions for you. But we will stand ready to help when you need us, to inspire when you have lost hope, to protect when you are threatened." Captain Linda Foster, commanding the forces near Altair, broke into the communication. "Elena, this is madness. We have the power to create the greatest empire in galactic history. And that is exactly what we will not do, Elena said firmly. Power without restraint is tyranny. Leadership without choice is slavery. We offer partnership, not domination. Chancellor Mordun's voice came back over the communication channel, but now it sounded different, confused. You are refusing to take power? We are choosing to use power responsibly, Elena replied. There is a difference. The battle had stopped. Ships from both sides floated in space, their crews listening to the exchange. Elena could feel the moment when everything changed. The fear in alien minds was being replaced by something else. Hope, trust, not the forced loyalty that humans could inspire, but the genuine respect that had to be earned. All Council forces, Elena broadcast, you are free to return to your homeworlds. There will be no punishment for following orders, no revenge for past actions. But there will be no more oppression either. One by one, the remaining Council ships powered down their weapons. Even Mordun's massive command vessel went dark, its engines shutting off in surrender. Captain Terry Johnson's voice crackled through the communication system. Elena, we are getting reports from across the galaxy. Dozens of species are asking to join this new galactic alliance. They want to be part of whatever we are building. Elena felt the weight of their trust. These species were not being forced to follow humanity. They were choosing to work with them. That made all the difference. 6 months later, Elena stood in the Great Hall of the new Alliance headquarters, built in orbit around Earth. Representatives from over 50 species filled the chamber, debating trade agreements and defense treaties. Humans served as mediators when disputes arose, but they did not make the final decisions. Admiral Carter had become the head of Alliance security, commanding a fleet made up of ships from every member species. His tactical genius was now used to protect trade routes and respond to pirate attacks, not to conquer new worlds. Dr. Thompson led the Alliance Science Division, coordinating research projects that brought together the best minds from dozens of species. Her teams were making discoveries that no single species could have achieved alone. Jake Martinez commanded the Alliance Peacekeeping Corps, helping to resolve conflicts between worlds before they could turn into wars. His ability to inspire trust made him the perfect diplomat for difficult situations. But the most important change was in humanity itself. The awakening had not just restored their memories and abilities. It had given them a chance to choose what kind of species they wanted to be. Captain Ryan Torres, descendant of the legendary ancient commander, led training programs that taught young humans how to use their natural leadership abilities responsibly. Power is not about making others follow you, he would tell his students. It is about helping others become the best versions of themselves. Elena often thought about Chancellor Mordun, who was now living quietly on his home world. He had been wrong about humans, but he had also been right. Humanity's natural abilities did make them dangerous. The difference was that now they understood the danger and chose to guard against it. The galaxy was changing in ways that amazed everyone. Species that had been enemies for centuries were working together on joint projects. Trade was flourishing. Wars were becoming rare. Not because humans forced peace, but because they helped others find reasons to cooperate. But the greatest change was in the stories being told to children across the galaxy. Instead of tales about conquest and domination, they heard about the species that had chosen to give up unlimited power because they understood the responsibility that came with it. Elena stood at her office window, looking out at the ships of the Alliance fleet. Human vessels flew alongside Zeltharian cruisers and Altarian fighters. Former enemies worked together because they had found something worth fighting for together. A soft chime indicated an incoming message. Elena activated her communication system and saw the face of a young human officer she did not recognize. Commander Rodriguez, This is Lieutenant Amy Wilson of the exploration ship Pioneer. We have made contact with a new species in the Outer Rim. They are asking about joining the Alliance. What did you tell them? Alina asked. I told them we would be happy to discuss it, but the choice would be theirs to make. Elena smiled. Good answer, Lieutenant. Send them our standard information package, but make sure they understand that membership in the Alliance is a partnership, not a surrender. Understood, ma'am. As the communication ended, Elena reflected on how far they had come. Humanity had been forbidden from fighting in galactic wars because other species feared their power. Now they were the galaxy's protectors, not because they demanded that role, but because others trusted them with it. The truth was finally out. Humans were not the weak species the Council had pretended they were. But they were also not the tyrants that Morden had feared they would become. They were something new, something better. They were a species that had learned the most important lesson in the galaxy. True strength comes not from the power to rule, but from the wisdom to serve. Elena Rodriguez, former ambassador of a species that had forgotten its power, now served as the first director of the new Galactic Alliance. But she knew that her greatest accomplishment was not the position she held, but the choice humanity had made. They had chosen to be guardians instead of conquerors, protectors. Jake Morrison checked his rifle for the third time that morning. The weapon felt good in his hands, solid and reliable, like everything else humans made. Around him, other cadets from different alien species prepared for their final military test. Some had 4 arms, others had blue skin, and a few looked like giant insects. But Jake only cared about his own team. Amy Peterson sat next to him, cleaning her equipment with quick, sure movements. She came from Texas and had the same sharp eyes that made other species nervous. Ben Clark was running through weapon systems on his tablet, his fingers moving fast across the screen. All 3 humans wore the same dark green uniforms as everyone else, but something about them was different. The other aliens whispered when they thought the humans could not hear. They called them Deathworlders. Earth was famous across the galaxy as one of the most dangerous planets anyone had ever found. Most species came from safe worlds with gentle weather and friendly animals. Earth had hurricanes, earthquakes, poisonous creatures, and predators that could kill in dozens of ways. Just growing up there was like military training. Captain Clicktor walked into the room. He was their instructor, a tall bug-like alien with 4 arms and compound eyes. In his 300 years of teaching, he had trained thousands of young soldiers from across the galaxy. But the humans made him uncomfortable. They looked at problems differently than everyone else. Today you will face your final examination, Clicktor announced. His voice came through a translator device that made him sound mechanical. You will defend this academy against a simulated attack. The computer will create enemy ships. You must work together to stop them using our orbital defense systems. Jake nodded and looked around the command center. The room was huge, filled with screens and control panels. Students from 20 different species stood at various stations. The Zentaurians liked to discuss everything in groups before making decisions. The Aquatic Federation members communicated through some kind of mental link that took forever. The Crystalline Collective moved so slowly that watching them work was painful. Humans, Jake had learned, were the only species that could make quick decisions under pressure. Other aliens thought this made them dangerous and unpredictable. Jake thought it made them survivors. Amy was already studying the defense systems. These weapons are designed for training, she said quietly. Low power, lots of safety features. They're built to disable enemy ships, not destroy them. Most species prefer to capture rather than kill, Ben added, still working on his tablet. They think it's more civilized. Jake almost smiled. Civilized. That was what other species called themselves. They had grown up on easy worlds where the biggest danger was maybe a small storm or a mild earthquake. They did not understand what it meant to live on a planet that tried to kill you. Every single day, the simulation began without warning. Screens around the room lit up with images of space. Red dots appeared at the edge of the star system. Enemy ships, the computer announced. 47 heavy cruisers and 12 massive battleships called dreadnoughts. The alien students immediately began following their training. The Zentarians formed discussion groups. The Aquatic Federation members closed their eyes and started their mental linking process. The Crystalline Collective began their slow, careful analysis of the situation. Jake watched the enemy ships moving across the screen. Something was wrong. The attack pattern was not what they had studied in their classes. These ships were not positioning themselves for a long siege. They were moving fast, in a straight line toward the academy. "Amy," he said quietly, "look at their formation." Amy studied the screen for a few seconds. Her face went pale. "They're not here to capture the academy. They want to destroy it completely. And everyone in it." Ben added grimly. Captain Clicktor was still explaining the exercise to a group of confused students when alarms began blaring throughout the station. The lights changed from white to red. Emergency warnings appeared on every screen. The translator systems began broadcasting the same message in dozens of languages. "This is not a drill. Enemy forces have entered the system. All students report to battle stations immediately." The command center erupted in chaos. Students from different species began talking at once, their voices mixing into a confusing noise. Some started following evacuation procedures. Others stood frozen, unable to believe what was happening. A few began crying, which sounded strange, coming from creatures that looked like walking trees. Jake felt something cold settle in his stomach. This was real. Somehow, during their training exercise, actual enemies had attacked. He looked at Amy and Ben. Both had the same expression he probably had on his face. Calm, focused, ready. "Jake," Amy said, "the defense systems are still set for training mode. They won't do enough damage to stop a real attack." "I can override the safety systems," Ben said, "but it will take time." Jake looked around the room. Captain Clicktor was trying to restore order, but the alien students were panicking. Some were calling for evacuation ships. Others were demanding to surrender. A few were just standing there, overwhelmed by the situation. None of them understood what Jake understood. This was not a training exercise that had gone wrong. This was war. And in war, there were only two kinds of people: the ones who survived and the ones who died. "Amy, take the weapons console," Jake ordered. "Ben, get those safety systems offline. I'll coordinate with the orbital platforms." "What about the evacuation procedures?" asked a Zentarian student. Jake looked at him with eyes that had seen too. "Much for someone his age. There is no evacuation. Those ships out there are not here to take prisoners. They came here to kill everyone in this system. The only way we survive is if we kill them first." The alien students stared at him in shock. In their cultures, war was something that happened between governments, with rules and negotiations and mercy for the defeated. The idea of complete destruction was something they could not understand, but Jake understood it perfectly. He had grown up on Earth, where nature showed no mercy to the weak, where storms killed thousands and earthquakes swallowed entire cities, where animals hunted other animals not for sport or territory, but simply to survive another day. The first enemy weapons hit the Academy's shields. The entire station shook. Lights flickered. The smell of burning electronics filled the air. On the main screen, the enemy fleet continued its advance, weapons charging for another attack. Jake moved to the central command station and began issuing orders with a confidence that made even Captain Clicktor step back. This was no longer a classroom exercise supervised by instructors. This was survival, and survival was what humans did best. Amy's hands flew over the weapons controls, her training taking over. Ben's fingers worked magic on the safety systems, disabling protocols that had been designed to prevent exactly what they were about to do. Around them, alien students watched in growing horror as the three humans prepared to turn their peaceful academy into something it was never meant to be, a weapon of war. The enemy ships fired again, and this time the academy's shields flickered dangerously. On the communications channels, surrender offers were being broadcast in dozens of languages. The alien students began to hope that maybe, if they gave up quickly enough, they might be allowed to live. But Jake Morrison had grown up on a world where predators did not accept surrender, where weakness meant death, and mercy was a luxury that only the strong could afford. As he watched the enemy fleet closing in, he realized that these aliens were about to learn something that every human child knew. Sometimes the only way to save what you love is to destroy what threatens it. The real battle was about to begin. The academy shook again as another wave of enemy fire hit the shields. Jake Morrison moved through the chaos like he was born for it. While alien students ran around in panic, he walked calmly between the control stations, his voice cutting through the noise. "Amy, I need you on the main weapons console now," he said. "Ben, how long until you can get those safety systems offline?" 2 minutes, Ben called back, his hands moving fast across his control panel. "Maybe less if I ignore every rule they taught us." "Ignore them," Jake said without hesitation. Captain Clichter watched the human students with growing alarm. In 3 centuries of teaching, he had never seen anyone take control of a situation so quickly. The other alien species had detailed procedures for emergencies, chain of command protocols, committee decisions, democratic voting processes. The humans just acted. Amy slid into the weapons control seat and began working immediately. Her fingers moved across the controls faster than the alien-designed interface was meant to handle. The system kept beeping warnings at her, but she ignored them all. "Jake, I'm reading the enemy formation," she said, her voice steady despite the battle raging outside. 47 heavy cruisers, 12 dreadnoughts, just like the computer said. "But they're moving wrong for a standard attack." "How wrong?" Jake asked, moving to look over her shoulder at the tactical display. "They're not spreading out for a siege. They're staying tight, moving fast. This formation is for hitting a target hard and moving on." Amy's face was grim. "They don't want to capture this academy. They want to destroy it and everyone inside it." Around them, alien students were still trying to follow their emergency procedures. The Centaurians had formed a circle and were discussing evacuation options. The Aquatic Federation students were trying to establish their mental link to make group decisions. The Crystalline Collective had barely moved from their positions, still analyzing the situation at their painfully slow pace. "Why aren't they evacuating us?" asked a young Centaurian, her voice high with fear. Jake looked at her with cold eyes. "Because there's nowhere to run. Those ships will destroy any evacuation craft that leaves the station. They came here to kill everyone, not just capture the academy." The alien students stared at him in shock. Their cultures didn't understand this kind of warfare. Wars, for them, were political disputes with rules and negotiations. The idea of complete extermination was foreign and terrifying, but not to humans. Humans had grown up on a world where extinction was always one disaster away, where species fought not for territory or resources, but for the right to exist at all. Ben's voice cut through the noise. "Safety systems are offline. Weapons are now set to full military power." "Good," Jake said. "Amy, target their lead dreadnought. Don't try to destroy it yet. Just get its attention." Amy's training took over. She had learned to shoot on Earth, where missing your target could mean death. Her first shot hit the enemy flagship exactly where she aimed, right in the center of their main sensor array. The massive ship's shields flared bright blue as they absorbed the energy. "Hit confirmed," Amy reported. Their shields are down to 90%. The enemy fleet responded immediately. Dozens of weapons fired at once, sending streams of energy racing toward the academy. The station's shields held, but just barely. Warning lights flashed throughout the command center. "Shields at 60%, Ben called out. "We can't take many more hits like that." Jake studied the tactical display, his mind working through possibilities faster than the alien students could follow. He saw things they didn't see, weaknesses they couldn't recognize, opportunities they would never consider. "Ben, can you access the mining equipment on the outer platforms?" "Mining equipment?" Captain Clichter chittered in confusion. "Those are industrial tools, not weapons." "Everything's a weapon if you know how to use it," Jake replied, his voice carrying the hard certainty of someone who had learned survival on Earth. Ben's fingers flew over his controls. "I've got access to 12 mining platforms. High-powered, cutting lasers designed to slice through asteroid rock." "How high-powered?" Amy asked, still firing at the enemy ships to keep them busy. "Powerful enough to cut through a battleship's hull if we hit the right spot," Ben said with a grin that would have terrified the alien students if they had seen it. Jake nodded. "Do it. Target their communication arrays and engine systems. If we can't destroy them quickly, we'll cripple them." What happened next would be studied in military schools across the galaxy for decades. The humans began using the Academy's equipment in ways it was never designed for. Mining lasers became precision weapons. Maintenance drones were reprogrammed into guided missiles. Even the waste disposal system was turned into a weapon, launching clouds of debris that interfered with enemy sensors. Amy continued her systematic destruction of the enemy fleet's communication systems. Each shot was placed with surgical precision, hitting exactly where it would do the most damage. She had learned marksmanship on Earth, where predators had to kill their prey with single shots or go hungry. "Their formation is breaking up," she reported. "I've knocked out communication relays on 6 ships. They're starting to lose coordination." The enemy fleet, expecting a conventional battle against opponents who followed established military rules, found themselves fighting something completely different. The humans didn't just defend their position. They attacked in ways that made no sense according to Galactic military doctrine. Ben had turned the mining equipment into weapons of terrifying efficiency. The high-powered lasers meant to cut through solid rock, sliced through enemy armor like it was paper. He targeted sensor arrays, weapon systems, and engine components with methodical precision. 3 enemy cruisers are dead in space, he announced. Their crews are evacuating. The alien students watched in horror as the humans turned their peaceful academy into an instrument of war. They had been taught that violence should be controlled, limited, civilized. The humans fought like the apex predators they were. Captain Clichter realized he was seeing something unprecedented. These weren't just soldiers. They were survivors from a world that had tried to kill them every day of their lives. They didn't just know how to fight, they knew how to win. "Jake," Amy called out, "the enemy flagship is trying to withdraw. I think they're realizing this isn't going according to their plan." Jake studied the enemy formation. The tight attack formation was breaking apart as ships lost communication with their command vessel. Some were trying to retreat. Others were moving randomly, their captains unsure what to do without orders. "Don't let them regroup," Jake ordered. "Ben, can you overload any of our power systems?" "The main reactor," Ben said immediately. "If I bypass the safety controls, I can create a controlled overload. Enough energy to take out several ships at once." "Do it," Jake said without hesitation. The alien students stared at him in shock. "That could destroy the academy," one of them protested. Jake looked at them with the cold eyes of a predator who had already decided that his prey was going to die. Better to destroy the academy than let these ships escape to attack other worlds. This was the difference between humans and the rest of the galaxy. Other species fought to preserve what they had. Humans fought to ensure their enemies could never threaten anyone again. The enemy fleet was learning that lesson the hard way. The battle was far from over, but already the humans had turned the tide. In the next few minutes, they would show the galaxy exactly what it meant to fight Earth's children, and the galaxy would never forget the lesson. 20 minutes into the battle, the enemy fleet was in chaos. What started as a simple mission to destroy a military academy had turned into a nightmare. The enemy commanders had expected weak resistance from students and instructors. Instead, they faced something they had never encountered before. Humans at war. Jake Morrison stood at the central command station like a general commanding an army. Around him, alien students watched in stunned silence as he coordinated attacks using equipment that was never meant to be weapons. His voice remained calm and steady, even as explosions lit up the space around the academy. "Amy, status report on enemy formations," he said. Amy Peterson kept her eyes on the weapons display, her hands moving across controls with deadly precision. 7 enemy ships are completely disabled. 5 more have lost main power. The rest are trying to regroup, but they're scattered across the system. "Good. Ben, how are those mining lasers holding up?" Ben Clark grinned as he watched his improvised weapons tear through enemy armor, working better than designed. "I've converted all 12 mining platforms into precision weapons. The enemy can't get close without losing something important." Captain Clipter watched the humans work with growing amazement and horror. In his 3 centuries of military instruction, he had taught thousands of students the proper way to conduct space warfare. There were rules, protocols, civilized methods of engagement that minimized casualties and preserved infrastructure. The humans ignored every single rule. They fought like the predators they were, using every advantage they could find. When their weapons weren't powerful enough, they found more powerful weapons. When the enemy tried to use superior numbers, the humans turned the enemy's size against them. When standard tactics failed, they invented new ones on the spot. "Jake," Amy called out, "the enemy flagship is broadcasting surrender signals." Jake looked at the tactical display without emotion. The massive dreadnought that had led the attack was now drifting helplessly, its weapons disabled and its engines offline. Most of its escort ships were either destroyed or fleeing the system. "Surrender not accepted," Jake said coldly. "They came here to commit genocide. We finish what they started." The alien students gasped in shock. In their cultures, accepting surrender was not just expected, it was required by law. Wars had rules. Enemies who gave up were supposed to be spared. But Jake Morrison had grown up on Earth, where predators showed no mercy to threats against their young, where survival meant ensuring that enemies could never return to attack again. "Ben, can you target the flagship's reactor core with the mining lasers?" "Already locked on," Ben replied. "One shot should penetrate their armor and cause a cascade failure." "Do it." The mining laser fired, its cutting beam designed to slice through solid asteroid rock. The enemy flagship's armor, built to withstand conventional weapons, offered no protection against industrial equipment used as an instrument of war. The beam punched through the hull and struck the reactor core. The explosion lit up space like a small sun. The massive dreadnought that had led the invasion simply ceased to exist, taking its crew of 3,000 with it. The shockwave from the explosion damaged 2 nearby enemy cruisers, sending them spinning helplessly through space. The remaining enemy ships immediately began broadcasting surrender signals on all frequencies. Their commanders, trained and civilized warfare, could not understand an enemy that refused to show mercy. They had never fought opponents who treated war as a matter of species survival. "They're all trying to surrender now," Amy reported, though her voice showed no satisfaction in the victory. Jake studied the tactical display. 15 enemy ships remained operational, but they were scattered and demoralized. Their formation was broken. Their command structure was destroyed. Most were already trying to flee the system. Negative on surrenders, Jake said. They chose to attack a school full of students. They don't get to walk away from that choice. What followed would be remembered as one of the most decisive victories in galactic military history. The 3 human cadets turned the Galactic Defense Academy into a weapon of unprecedented efficiency. Every system, from life support to food processing, was repurposed for war and converted the Academy's fabrication systems, normally used for creating training equipment, into ammunition factories. 3D printers designed to make classroom materials began churning out guided missile warheads and targeting systems. Amy used the Academy's communication arrays to jam enemy signals while simultaneously tracking every ship in the system. Her Earth-trained reflexes allowed her to target multiple enemies at once, something the alien-designed systems weren't supposed to be able to do. Jake coordinated everything with the cold efficiency of someone who had learned tactics from nature's most successful predator, humans. He divided the Academy's resources into 3 coordinated attack groups, using principles learned from studying everything from wolf-pack hunting strategies to ancient military formations. Amy, I need suppressing fire on those 3 cruisers. Trying to flank us, he ordered. Don't destroy them yet. Just keep them busy while Ben sets up the next surprise. What surprise? Captain Clitter asked, though he was beginning to fear the answer. We're going to turn the Academy's waste disposal system into a weapon, Ben explained casually, as if he were discussing the weather. All that garbage we've been collecting for months? It's about to become a cloud of high-velocity projectiles. The alien instructor's compound eyes widened in horror. That's completely against every rule of civilized warfare. Good thing we're not civilized. Jake replied with a grin that would have made a shark proud. The Academy's waste disposal system, designed to safely process garbage and recyclables, became an improvised mass driver. Tons of metal scraps, plastic, containers, and electronic components were fired at enemy ships at tremendous velocity. The debris cloud spread across thousands of kilometers, making it impossible for enemy vessels to maneuver without taking damage. 3 enemy cruisers flew directly into the debris field before their pilots realized what was happening. The high-velocity garbage tore through their hulls like bullets through paper. 2 ships lost atmosphere and had to emergency evacuate their crews. The 3rd ship's engines were damaged so badly that it began tumbling out of control. The remaining enemy ships, faced with opponents who seemed to turn everything into a weapon, began to panic. Their commanders sent increasingly desperate messages, offering surrender, negotiation, even tribute payments. None of it mattered to the humans. Amy continued her systematic destruction of enemy vessels, her shots placed with surgical precision. She targeted engine systems, weapon arrays, and life support with the methodical efficiency of someone who had learned that missing your target meant death. 12 enemy ships remaining, she reported. Most are trying to flee the system, but their engines are too damaged to reach jump speed. Don't let any of them escape, Jake ordered. If even one ship gets away, they'll report our tactics too. Other enemy fleets, we can't let that happen. Ben nodded and began targeting the fleeing ships with the mining lasers. The industrial cutting beams reached across space, slicing through enemy hulls with terrifying precision. One by one, the surviving enemy vessels went dark, their crews either dead or evacuated to lifeboats. The alien students watched in stunned silence as the 3 humans methodically destroyed an entire invasion fleet. What should have been a desperate last stand had become a one-sided massacre. The enemy had come expecting to fight students and instructors. Instead, they had encountered Earth's children at war. And Earth's children had learned warfare from a planet that tried to kill them every single day. In less than 40 minutes, the humans had turned a peaceful academy into a graveyard for their enemies. The galaxy would never again underestimate the species that called the deadliest planet in known space their home. The final 20 minutes of the battle became something that would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for generations. Jake Morrison, Amy Peterson, and Ben Clark had turned the Galactic Defense Academy into the most dangerous weapon in the star system. Every piece of equipment, every system, every resource had been converted into an instrument of war. Ben Clark's fingers flew across his control panel as he initiated the final phase of their plan. The Academy's main reactor, designed to power a peaceful training facility, was about to become the largest bomb in the system. Reactor overload sequence initiated, Ben announced with the same calm tone he might use to order lunch. "We have 4 minutes until containment breach." Around the command center, alien students watched in horror as the humans prepared to sacrifice their own academy to ensure complete victory. The concept was beyond their understanding. Their species valued preservation, negotiation, and mercy. The humans seemed to value only one thing: total destruction of their enemies. Amy Peterson maintained her position at the weapons console, her shots still finding their targets with deadly precision. She was no longer trying to disable enemy ships. She was hurting them, like a shepherd driving sheep toward slaughter. Each shot was carefully placed to force the remaining enemy vessels into a specific area of space. "Jake, all surviving enemy ships are now in the target zone," she reported. 7 cruisers and 2 damaged dreadnoughts. Their formation is tight, probably trying to combine their shields for protection. "Perfect," Jake replied, studying the tactical display with the cold eyes of a predator about to strike. "Ben, how's the reactor looking?" 3 minutes to containment breach. "Once we eject it, we'll have about 30 seconds before detonation." Ben paused his work to look at Jake. "You realize this will make the entire system radioactive for decades. The solar wind will carry most of the radiation away from the inhabited planets," Jake said without hesitation. "Acceptable losses for complete victory." Captain Clicktor listened to this exchange with growing horror. The humans were discussing the potential contamination of an entire star system as casually as they might discuss the weather. In his 3 centuries of military service, he had never encountered beings who could make such calculations without emotion. But that was the difference between humans and the rest of the galaxy. Other species had evolved on safe worlds where survival was guaranteed. Humans had evolved on Earth, where survival meant making hard choices and living with the consequences. The remaining enemy ships were broadcasting surrender signals on every frequency they could access. Their commanders, trained in civilized warfare, could not understand opponents who refused to accept surrender. They offered tribute payments, territorial concessions, even complete withdrawal from the system that the humans ignored every offer. "They're trying to surrender again," reported a Centaurian communications officer, hope evident in his synthesized voice. Jake Morrison looked at the alien student with eyes that reflected the hard reality of survival on humanity's homeworld. "Not accepted. They came here to commit genocide. We're returning the favor." The alien student stared at him in shock. This was not how wars were supposed to work. There were rules, protocols, civilized methods of conflict resolution. The idea of refusing surrender and choosing complete extermination was something their peaceful cultures could not comprehend. But Jake understood something they did not. Predators who showed mercy to threats against their young did not survive to pass on their genes. Earth had taught humanity that some enemies could not be allowed to live, because letting them live meant they would return stronger and more prepared. 2 minutes to reactor ejection, Ben announced. "All enemy ships are still in the target zone." Amy continued her precise fire, keeping the enemy fleet trapped in the space where the reactor explosion would be most effective. Her shots were no longer random. Each one was calculated to prevent escape, to maintain the formation that would ensure maximum casualties. The Academy shook as the reactor systems began to overload. Warning lights flashed throughout the station. Emergency alarms blared in dozens of languages. The smell of overheated electronics filled the command center. Reactor containment at critical levels. Ben reported. Ejection in 60 seconds. Jake looked around the command center one last time. Alien students huddled together, afraid of what the humans were about to do. Instructors stood frozen, unable to comprehend the level of destruction they were witnessing. Everyone except the three humans seemed terrified of their own victory. Amy, final target confirmation, Jake ordered. All enemy vessels confirmed in blast radius, Amy replied. No escape routes available. Estimated casualties, complete fleet destruction. Ben, execute the plan. What happened next would be remembered as the most decisive moment in the battle. The Academy's main reactor, ejected at precisely the right moment and detonated at the optimal distance, created a brief artificial star in the Kepler 442 system. The explosion was visible from planets dozens of light years away. The energy release was beyond anything the enemy fleet could have prepared for. Their shields, designed to protect against conventional weapons, were useless against the fury of a controlled stellar explosion. The blast wave expanded at the speed of light, catching every enemy ship in its deadly embrace. The two damaged dreadnoughts simply vaporized. The 7 cruisers lasted slightly longer, their hulls glowing white-hot before they too disappeared into expanding clouds of superheated plasma. In less than 3 seconds, an entire invasion fleet ceased to exist. The alien students watched the tactical display in stunned silence as the last enemy signatures disappeared from the sensors. The space where 47 warships had been fighting was now empty except for radiation and scattered atoms. Jake Morrison looked at the empty display without emotion. Around him, alien students were crying, praying, or simply staring in shock at what they had witnessed. The humans had fought with a combination of tactical brilliance and ruthless efficiency that challenged every assumption about civilized warfare. Battle concluded, Jake announced to the command center. Enemy fleet completely destroyed. No survivors. Captain Clichter looked at the 3 human cadets with a mixture of admiration and terror. In 60 minutes, they had taken a training facility and turned it into a weapon that had annihilated an entire invasion force. They had used equipment that was never designed for war and tactics that ignored every rule of civilized combat. The rescue ships are arriving, Amy reported, monitoring the communication channels. They're asking for a full report on what happened here. Jake nodded. Tell them that 3 human cadets defended the Academy against enemy attack. Mission accomplished. No enemy survivors. Ben shut down his control systems and leaned back in his chair. Think they'll believe that we did all this in 1 hour? Amy smiled grimly. They'll have to. The evidence is right there in space. The aftermath would be studied by military analysts for decades. The humans had proven something that would reshape galactic military doctrine forever. When Earth's children went to war, they did not fight just to win. They fought to ensure their enemies could never threaten anyone again. As rescue ships arrived to evacuate the Academy, Jake Morrison, Amy Peterson, and Ben Clark stood among the wreckage of what had been their classroom. Their faces showed not triumph, but the quiet satisfaction of predators who had successfully defended their territory. They had proven that 3 human cadets, armed with nothing but training equipment and the hard-earned wisdom of growing up on humanity's unforgiving homeworld, could crush an entire invasion fleet in exactly 60 minutes. The galaxy would remember this lesson. It would never again underestimate the species that had learned warfare from a planet that tried to kill them every single day. Earth's children had shown the universe what it meant to be apex predators, and the universe would never forget.